Assalamu alaikum, guys. So when the Quran has prescribed Albay over or against Riba, we are wondering where actually can Albay be applied to replace Riba. Will it be in the venture capital company, or will it be in the mutual fund or unit trust company? Of course not, because this venture capital and mutual fund company, they are dealing with equities. They are not dealing with money lending with interest. So the only obvious place is basically the commercial bank, because the commercial bank in general will take deposit or will take interest-bearing deposit from the public, and then they will use this deposit fund to make interest-bearing loans. So, for example, if the bank pays the depositor an average of 3% per annum on the deposit, and then the bank will use this deposit fund to make a loan and charges a borrower a loan rate of, let's say, 7%. And we can see that the bank will make a profit of 7% minus 3%, that is 4% for every dollar loan they are making. So this is the nature of the banking business, where they will use leverage money or borrowed money, to make loans and able to earn some spread, from the difference between the loan rate and the deposit rate. Of course, this is a money lending business, money lending with interest or interest-bearing money lending business, which is Riba. And this is where the Albay is to be replaced, is to be introduced to replace Riba. So our question here is whether will this kind of transplantation of Albay into the Ribawi system be a viable model for us to evidence the superiority of Albay over Riba. So that would be the challenge, because the banking system itself was structured or established based on an interest-bearing lending and borrowing system. The bank will borrow from the public money, which is leveraged money, and pays interest on the deposit. And the bank will use this deposit fund to make loan with interest. So it is interest-bearing money lending. The bank is the borrowing party. When it comes to the deposit mobilization, the bank becomes the borrowing party, where the bank pays interest to the borrowing party, which is the depositors. And when the bank makes a loan, then the bank becomes the lending party, where the bank will charge interest on the loan. Right? So this modality is that modality that the current Islamic banking is using. But now, instead of using interest-bearing lending and borrowing product, the Islamic bank is using the buy and sell modality, which is based on Albay. Albay is buy and sell, but buy and sell can also be categorized generally into buy and sell, which is direct buy and sell under the perspective of murabaha, buy with aman ajil, tawarruk. These are direct buy and sell. We also have leasing or operating leasing under the Albay principle, as well as we have the mudaraba and musharaka system. So Albay is a holistic transaction that the Quran has prescribed, and this will include sale, leasing, as well as equity. And therefore, when we want to transplant Albay into the interest-bearing modality of the banking system, then this is something that we need to examine whether or not this is a viable model for the Islamic bank to adopt or to emulate, because Albay or buy and sell is not lending and borrowing, because lending and borrowing is a contract whereby the lending party, and the borrowing party will enter into an agreement by which the borrowing party has the obligation to pay off their debt to the bank. And their debt to the bank is not only what they lend to the bank, meaning that the deposit amount, but also the interest imposed onto the deposit. So at redemption or at maturity, the depositor have the right to claim the principal amount of the deposit plus interest. So in a sense that the depositor is guaranteed by the contract of deposit, which is a contract of loan, that will guarantee at maturity the bank must redeem the principal amount of deposit plus interest. At the same time, when the bank make a loan to the borrowing party, then we can see that the borrower will hold a debt obligation to the bank, and that debt would be the sum of the loan plus the interest that the bank charges on the loan facility. So so the debt carried by the borrowing party are essentially debt comprising of the principal loan plus the interest payment. So the bank, at both ends, we can see that at one end, when we look at the deposit mobilization, the bank is the borrowing party that pays interest to the depositor. And when the bank makes a loan, the bank is a lending party and charges interest to the borrower. Okay, so that is lending and borrowing, where I have said earlier that the outcome of the loan contract is known because the agreement has stipulated the rate of interest to be paid, by the borrower if it is coming from a loan, and the borrower will have that obligation, to pay off the loan that they got from the bank plus the interest they owe the bank. So this a contract of loan will provide certainty to the bank as a lending party on their what they will obtain as a repayment from the borrowing party. And at the deposit side, the depositor would be able to ascertain with certainty how much they will be getting at maturity, meaning that they will be claiming the full principal of deposit plus the interest earned. However, when we use this kind of lending and borrowing modality for Albay, for buying and selling, this will, cause a big disruption to the system of banking, because no longer the contract of Albay will guarantee capital, will guarantee interest payment, because Albay is buy and sell, whereby the outcome of the sale is unknown, right? In Albay, the merchant will invest his money in the business where he intends to, buy a specific asset from the supplier, which is the cost price that he will pay the wholesaler. But he has that intention to do a resale. So he will buy from the wholesaler to do a resale in the retail market. And how much he can sell in the retail market will be determined by the forces of demand and supply, because there is no guarantee that he can sell, at a particular price, like what we see in riba, where the loan rate would be guaranteed a 7% interest per annum, or the deposit rate is at 3% per annum. But in a buy and sell system, there is no such guarantee that the bank can make profit. So the bank is exposed to profit and losses based on the market movement, and that would be quite difficult for the bank to handle, because all along we can see that the bank has been doing lending and borrowing based on a contract whereby the loan is guaranteed and the interest is guaranteed. Then if you were to swap the interest-bearing lending and borrowing transaction with the Albay transaction, where there is no certainty about the profit and losses, and there is no certainty how capital will end up into, then this will provide a very big dramatic change in the way how the bank will have to be managed when Albay is introduced instead of riba based loan. So this is something that we should be thinking about, because we are not simply in a state where everything is perfect as long as the product are Sharia compliant. Deposit product are Sharia compliant, and the financing product are Sharia compliant, where the product is free from riba, is free from gharar, free from the gambling or maisir, free from pork and alcohol. The Sharia compliant parameters, of course, it is something that is required for us to screen the transaction from the haram element. But then one of the other aspects of Islamic banking is to understand the nature of the banking business itself. That it was first originated from a lending and borrowing system with interest, and now to be replaced with Albay, which is buy and sell, whereby the outcome of Albay is unknown, right? As opposed to riba, where the outcome of riba is known by way of the contract stipulated in the lending and borrowing transaction. So this is how we are going to look at Islamic banking. We will look at it from the perspective of the product profiling, as well as the actual banking business, how the buy and sell modality will be affecting deposit, will be affecting deposit mobilization, how it will affect financing of purchases, and what will happen to capital when there is profit, when there is losses. So this is a very important aspect of banking that we must be able to understand, so that we can have a holistic idea how Islamic banking is operated within the dual financial system that we see today. Okay guys, we'll come back and continue to look at more issues. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.